Hello and welcome to Android P. So now that we know that Android P has recently released, let's know a little bit more about Android P. So about Android P, the developer preview released in March 2018, and that's when I'm recording this particular series. It's scheduled to release, scheduled release set for around Q3 or let's say fall of 2018. Lots of new features in API, and we'll probably look through some of them in a little while. There's a lot of security updates. There's also something called as Autofill Framework, and it's much more helpful. You'll probably read about that too. Next, the required tools that we need to set up and write some code is Android Studio 3.2, which is the Canary version right now. That's what Google calls its pre-release version. They call it Canary version. There's also Canary, Chrome Canary. So this will be used to kind of build preview apps for Android P, and then we need a pixel emulator or device. You can actually use a device to run your application or a pixel emulator, and that's what we'll be using in this particular course. Let me show you some of the things. So this is the home page for our Android P developer preview version. You can read things about it, about how to. So I've covered most of my things since there's not much information out there. I went through this website and looked at some of the things that we can do. As per programming overview goes, it has its timeline and updates of when the final release, as I mentioned, somewhere in the fall or before that, they'll have the preview release, and they also do incremental releases. So as and when years go by, months go by, we'll have a better version available, so you can kind of test your apps that you already have or build some new apps that focus on the new APIs that they have. And we can also look at how to get it. So you can get your Android P version here, which I'll have shown in a separate video. Also, you can, if you have a device, one of the Pixel devices, you can flash your device to have. So these are the devices that are supporting Android P, so you can download them and flash them. There is also how to set up your, as I mentioned, you need Android Studio 3.2, and we'll see that in a future video. Next, migration guide. They have a migration guide of how they are planning to do it, and you can actually accordingly change your applications or test your application based on this migration plan and publish your application when it's available for release. So I would always recommend just make sure you install your Android Studio 3.2 as a separate version instead of on top of your existing one, because if you want to publish something before Q3, you don't want to download it again and then build your application. Some of the feature APIs, as I mentioned, there's indoor positioning with Wi-Fi RTT, where you can actually track a user as and when he's walking through a mall or through his home or anywhere. So this is something that can be very useful in future, just tracking users, kind of advertising based on that. I can think of a million ideas right there. Then we also have display cutoff support. This is a feature where the screen actually goes all the way to the top, and there's a notch where it's something similar to what Apple came out with in iPhone X, and there might be some features that feature devices like Pixel might come with that similar thing. And we have notification. Now we have images and things. We'll see some of the examples with this in this particular video series. We have some security updates. You can read through them. It's based on the fingerprint authentication. You make sure. So information is always important, and as and when Android is growing, they're coming up with new features for that. There's also some updates with, if you see, to key store, and how you can use Android in enterprise world. As we know, both Apple and Android are trying to fight to get into the Android market and the enterprise market, and making sure that they have their presence in most devices. That's the next generation of mobile devices. That's something that is been untapped. Previously it was tapped by BlackBerry, and it was pretty prominent, and now slowly Android and iPhone are trying to get into there. Next, we have Autofill Frameworks. It has its own metrics, input sanitization, UI improvements, data sets. So there are a bunch of different things that are coming up with that Autofill Framework. We can also look at behavioral changes, feedback, and you can read all these things, and some of these things I'll also cover in my future videos, this particular course, and I'll keep on updating as and when the new updates come up. As and when they come up, slowly grow, I'll probably update my videos as and when I find something new. So that's it for the introduction of Android P, and let's get started.